All right, welcome back to For a Better Day podcast here. I am joined today by two people I've met way earlier in my life, Kent and Ashleigh Mass now.
Woo!
They are now a married couple, but when I met them, it was Ashleigh was in the same grade as me in the youth group, and Kent was one of the leaders that I knew.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's decade has gone by. It's been pretty crazy. But they have agreed to come on and share parts of their stories and then also their combined stories. And we were going to start with Kent over here. If you could just start going through maybe just even before you knew Christ and into how life was before then and into how you met God and what he did up to obviously when you met Ashleigh, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So I think I grew up in a Christian household. I think for our situation is very complicated as a family. I mean, every family has its systems and like things that it kind of deals with, or like brokenness and things. But I was the middle son. So older brother, me, younger brother, and then a sister came along. And so for me, my dad was not very present. I don't know how much to like dive into that because it's so whatever.
So whatever the Spirit's compelling you to share, I understand if it's like you just say something vague and we carry on. Yeah, it's completely up to you.
Yeah. I think for us, he was like kind of starting up a business shortly after he married my mom, or like right before he married my mom. And so there was this feeling in him probably of a lot of like inadequacies of trying to fill, a lot of unrest, a lot of probably not following the Lord, but instead having like a really heavy expectation on himself or whatever of like the demons he was fighting, but then also feeling like he wasn't measuring up and all this stuff. And so he kind of just poured into his business, which like work hard, hustle, all that stuff. Great, fine, whatever. But, you know, there was definitely a lot, like kind of a wound and like a gaping openness in our family that his energies were really over there. And then he would kind of come home and not be very present. I think would be burnout, and it would be, I would say, fairly consistent in that way. So, you know, all of us boys grow up or are growing up with this kind of vacuum for affection, for needing a strong male in our lives.
Right.
And, you know, that was, so we're all very young, you know, and we don't really, or I guess I'll speak for myself. I don't really know how to process what I'm feeling that young. I mean, who does?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so there's all of this like openness and woundedness and aloneness and I think anger. Having gone through counseling last year, the most recent round, I found that I could tap into my anger really easily. Like I can just go right into it. Whereas like mourning or acknowledging the brokenness that was there, and that impacting me onto sadness or like, that doesn't hit me as easily. It's this like anger. So growing up, not very like, my dad's just very distant and all these things. And there was also a lot of sexual brokenness in his life and some dynamics there that came into, I think, the home. I think stronghold wise, it's weird how like the spiritual world kind of comes into the physical. So I don't think I was abused or anything that I know of, but I would say that my vacuum in my heart needed to be filled.
Right.
And so that was, you know, back in the AIM days, the computer days, I
remember that.
Dial-up internet days, and we ended up getting like higher speed internet and all these things. And, you know, I was always, I think, a problem solver. So I would try to oh, I really like this or that. So I'll try to figure it out. And so I figured out one day that there's something called porn, and it's on the internet, and the internet is this gateway of lots of things.
Big, wide open gateway.
Yeah, and it was like, you don't know how to even deal with that. So found images, and there was something in me that just wanted to like possess that feeling of like how that made me feel that first time. Now, obviously, anytime you see something new or whatever, it becomes this chase to experience that feeling again.
Yep.
So it's this very bottomless pit. So I would, on the surface, I feel like I came across an image and kind of took it in and then like saved it in a sense, like almost like a computer. Like I'm just going to like save this in my mind or whatever. Like it kind of became stuck. And then there was this chase of, well, how do I find more? And then it became that whole thing. And then, so it kind of created like, I think 2 versions of me. So there was this, I was an intellectual. I like church. I like learning. I like all the good things, but then there's also this side of like, but these other things in secret make me feel alive. And it was a place that I just kept running back to. And I felt stuck between these 2 places. I mean, there was a lot of shame. I have to keep this hidden. I have to keep it secret. And
I'm with you.
Yeah.
And that's part of it for myself as well.
Mm-hmm.
No, you were only 6 years old.
Yeah, that is.
When you stumbled upon that.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
You're fine.
Oh, you're good. Should I say it again?
Sure.
Yeah, why not?
Are you going to cut this?
Yeah, I can. Sometimes when it's like just whatever, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, so you were only 6 years old when you took all of that in. And now our oldest is 6 years old. And he has a hard time just sometimes processing regular life things.
Normal things. Yeah.
I can't imagine being 6, seeing something like that, and never talking to anyone about it. And parents not knowing about it.
Mm-hmm. Right. So obviously, Dad's not really a safe place to go to with that information. / he's dealing with his own problems. And this is a little bit of a detour. I read a book on Columbine a few years back, and it was talking about how one of the killers had this feeling, I think he journaled about it, of like his parents were always solving their own problems, never had time for his problems, no matter how small or whatever.
Right.
For me, that really resonated with something in me of like, yeah, I felt like I always had to kind of solve my own things. I have to come up with the solutions. I have to fix this. Again, like I'm in like, I don't even know, 1st, 2nd grade or whatever. It's like, how do you overcome something that like pervasive and everywhere? So it became this really deep wound that I felt like I was either trying to fix by myself or trying to indulge in and just feel better about my life.
Did you immediately know then like what you were doing was wrong?
Yeah,
or harmful?
I mean, not to the extent,
Sure.
But I think that like I knew I didn't want anyone else to know.
Sure.
So I don't know why that exists, like that shame, like no matter how young you are, you do something wrong, you try to hide it.
Right.
Like, I mean, our kids, young, even like 4 years old, poop their diaper and they don't want you to know about it. Right. You're walking around and you're like, you pooped. And they're like, no, I didn't. No. You stay away from me.
No. We can solve this. Right now. It's okay.
yeah, exactly. It was a lot like that. It was just like I got into something I didn't know what to do with, and I was just like, hey, everybody, no, I'm good, really. I'm fine. Like, and so I want to keep this secret. I want to keep this my own. So that really bled into a lot of things. So it led to a lot of sneaking around, a lot of secrecy, a lot of lying, a lot of like, okay, I'm going to keep this part over here. But got caught several times, and it So there was also this place of like, but I don't want this anymore. I want to fix this. I want to be rid of this. But again, not being equipped to know how or what to do. So that was some of that journey. I would say I would try to like install different software, around like 8 or 9 or 10 years old, like 12 years old, trying to be like, okay, like I'll install this blocker and try to like fix this. But then it kind of almost tapped into this like neurological thing of like, okay, well, how do I now get around that blocker that I installed? It just became this other problem to solve, which was strange because it became almost less about the porn or the girls or the image or whatever, but it became about getting around to it. Like, oh wow, look what I was able to like do. It's very ridiculous, but
no, I identify with that as well. Like I did that. I went into an accountability thing with an amount of iron thing, and we put a software on it, and then I figured out a way around that. Yeah, and now I'm not sharing about that now.
Right? Yeah,
it's like, well, I can't.
Yeah.
I'll reveal this.
Yeah,
just be like, so yeah, he'll see what I'm looking at, and it's fine. But like, I know it's not fine.
Yeah, there's a lot of self shame, but then also self justification, which is really weird because shame is like hiding and justification is like, so shame is like, I didn't do that, or it wasn't as bad as I thought, or it didn't hurt anyone. That's like the one side. And then the justification is like, well, okay, I did, but it wasn't as bad as maybe someone thinks, or, whatever. You go down that road. And so there were times where either, like I said, I would get caught, or I would try to get honest, and in whatever way I knew at that time to be like, hey, I did do this or that. I think it led to a lot of tiredness, kind of that game of like trying to prove myself, trying to get over it, but also wanting more of it.
Right.
Not knowing how to address that underlying anger or alone feeling,
Yeah.
that I think I was trying to silence. So, that's kind of the basic intro to my, what ended up becoming kind of one of the main themes of my childhood.
How does that impact you, like, while you're growing up, like you're going into middle school, high school?
Yeah. It always felt like there was something ready to like spring out almost, like where you live life and you're kind of like, I just don't want this thing to kind of pop out. And who knows where I'm going to be or when I'm going to be where or whatever. And all of a sudden that urge, that temptation, that desire grips you, and you're just like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to deal with this.
Right.
Guess I'll give in. And so it's really hard because it's like computers are everywhere.
And every year they just got better, easier to use, and faster.
Access, smart devices, all of these things, tablets. Our world is only moving more in that direction, and so it got harder and harder and harder to know what to do with it. The monster kept growing, and that kind of led me to this feeling of like, I can't trust myself. I can't trust myself alone. I can't trust myself alone with a device. I need like everyone in the world to like know, so that we can set up all these defenses to try to all this stuff. Fix it. Fix me. I'm broken in a way that I don't know what to do with. And again, just a lot of self-effort to try to fix it.
I guess I forgot to ask, like, you said you'd grown up in the church. Do you remember when you like officially like were born again?
So I think, that's a good question. I think a lot of it for a long time was this head knowledge and this like, well, I don't want to go to hell. There was this like, as I was growing up, there was this heavy fear of death and fear of hell and fear of what if somebody finds out about who I really am? Yep. And so Jesus I feel like it was this really weird thing where I would know a lot. But again, being so young, it's like, how does all this apply? And how do I come to God when I've messed up again? Like for the millionth time.
Mm-hmm.
What does it look like the 1,000,001st time? And what does it look like the next time? And so, yeah, there was just a lot of probably home discipleship that didn't really exist, or
right.
that kind of thing. And I think, again, that's where like a strong male would have been very helpful to say, hey, I see you're on this or that path, or I see you're really going down this way.
Mm-hmm.
With our son, it's very it's simple and difficult. It's simple because I notice things sometimes that maybe he doesn't know what to do with. Maybe, again, like he's young, so he's like gets onto a video game, he's doing a thing, and I'm like, hey, you've been spending a lot of time on that, or hey, you get really angry when you lose. Like, I love that you're competitive, but you also just said you hate me because I tried to take it away or something, So it's just working through that with him, being like, hey, you can't talk to me like that. I'm your dad. I didn't really have that. There were no guardrails.
Right.
I was just like, open door, whatever I want to do. And so I had very few people very young saying, go this way, don't go this way. This is good. This is bad. This will hurt you. I just had this knowledge that it wasn't good. So I'm going to hide it. So I'm going to try to figure this thing out myself. So I'm going to try to get better. But again, it's all up to kind of your self-will. So when your self-will stops, I'm going to eat the donut.
Yep. Absolutely.
When your self-will's done, like, I'm just going to go over here and do what I would really want to do. So yeah, it was this back and forth thing for a long, long time. And again, just wish that there had been these guardrails. Wish that there had been some of that, like, hey, I've noticed you're on the computer a lot. And I would flare up. I'd get angry, like any kid, like who is getting something taken away. But my anger, I could kind of, I found out that I could persuade or control people with my emotions also. So that was a real thing, which, I had to deal with. Or figure out or something.
Right.
Yeah.
So when's that day that you're born again?
Mm-hmm. So actually that comes quite a bit later.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's confusing. So like, I think you could perhaps look at it as like the seeds were planted young.
Sure.
Having grown up in a Christian home, having a mom who was trying to do her best to parent alongside of, again, that vacuum of my dad and that story. Her doing her best to raise 3 boys when she herself is very, like, was raised Mennonite. Life was very different for her. Technology was not the same back then. I mean, no one's looking up porn on a rotary phone.
Right.
So, life...
If you can just find the magazine stash, we can just incinerate this now.
Yeah. And it was weird because, like, my dad, like, did not have that story. Like, I did not come across, some stash or something. My stash was the internet. But I think the seeds were planted young. We did go to church. We did, I did have a lot of conversations over the years. And I think God was after me for a long time.
Sure.
So I'm very thankful for that looking back. But I would say it's always that battle between the head and the heart. Like, your head knows what's right or wrong. Your heart needs to really let that sink in. And I felt like God was on this progressive, over time, patient, and yet nagging. Yeah. And like this desire, this, like, I don't know, kind of almost holy fury, or this, like, I just want...
Right. You're like, lacking in this, like, fatherly figure telling you what's wrong, and God's trying to do that. And you're like, what are you trying to do to me? Like, this is all new. That like, and he's like, this is what you need, and I'm going to keep doing it, but I'm going to be doing it in the most eternally patient way.
Yeah.
In existence.
That's a really good way to put that. So I would say, I knew a lot about God. I knew a lot about the Bible or whatever, but like its application to me directly took a really, really long time. And still somehow, I'll never understand this. He would show up or kind of talk or do stuff that I could only be like, that was God, but I wasn't following at the same time.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah. So that story probably comes a little bit later, so I don't know if we bounce and then kind of tie it.
Let's bounce over to Ashleigh a little bit and get a little bit of your background and your upbringing and time with God.
Yeah, totally. So, I was born in New England, and my parents moved to Pennsylvania when I was like 2. And when we moved into our first town home, a neighbor invited us to church. And my parents have both more like Catholic backgrounds, which Catholicism in itself isn't bad in my opinion, but they had no relationship with Jesus.
Sure.
My parents, you know.
That's the main thing, though.
Yeah, yeah. So they were not, saved Catholics. So my sister and I and my mom started going to church with our neighbor. And my mom got saved. And I was very shy as a child, so I would sit in the main service with my mom instead of going into like children's church, Sunday school. And I feel like I couldn't get enough of hearing about God and about the Word. And when I was 5, I asked him to be in my heart, which I think was very genuine. And I think I've been saved since that time. And so grew up that way. And my dad's awesome. He's great, but he did not follow the Lord. So it was basically my mom leading us, and dad had emotional baggage from his parents. So he was very like involved with us, but then at the same time, I could, see strife between him and my mom, or he had some anger issues, like just stuff like that. And so, that was like my childhood pretty much. So basically loved the Lord, homeschooled, played with my friends, pretty average, like uneventful childhood for the most part. It was fun.
Being born again at 5 is pretty eventful.
It's really great. Yeah. Yeah.
I kind of identify with both stories there, because I believe when I was very young that I made a serious commitment to God, and then the world just came inside of me, and then it was just like, I don't know. Like, I've recommitted a few times since then, but I'm under the belief now, like, there was a time where like there was this genuine innocence there, and like, I was in church and like I chose this, and then
totally.
And then as sin corrupted and pornography and all these other things get in there, it's just like it makes you think you got to recommit, which is fine to do. I'm not saying that I didn't need to do that, because I think it's just like I needed to get square with God, so that was an honest thing. Like, I need to do this, but I think that head knowledge became, that's when I started thinking like, I only know about this stuff and I don't believe. But then there was a time where I was a kid and this stuff wasn't in my life, and like I think the more closer I'm growing to God is like I'm getting closer to who that was before sin entered. Like, when like how the garden was perfect and then sin got in there. I'm like, there was a time when you were alive where sin wasn't in your life. Now we're all born not perfect, but that's why Jesus just said, let the kids come to me. And that kind of reminded me, you're just saying, I just wanted to be in the sermon. He's like, what's going on here? I want to hear more of this. But I think I think you can be saved as a kid, absolutely. Even if you don't really understand it. Like, there's a reason that you chose that. Kids are a lot more, obviously they don't understand the adult world, but it's not like you really need to. It's not like we figure anything. We don't get any kind of like magical wisdom, that little bit of experience, but like kids are very smart and their moral compass is pretty solid if there's not any kind of traumatic experience that's happening there. So it's like they know what they're talking about, and it's like this Jesus guy's like this is real. Then all of a sudden the world just tries to convince you that you're just a kid, you didn't know. It's like, no, God, Jesus was connected with you in a real way. There was nothing preventing him, because there was no walls up or anything. But I just kind of felt I needed to share that. I didn't want to interrupt you there.
No, that's good. And then
uneventful was what you were saying.
Like this early elementary years. And then as I got into middle school,
we were trying to find a church because our previous pastor had retired. And we kind of weren't living in that same zone anymore. And my dad, unsaved, mentioned a church, which is the church that you and I had met at and where Kent met at.
Wow.
Totally unsaved. Just knew that someone he knew went there.
Yep.
Started going there. That youth pastor at that time, you wouldn't have known him, became that Christ-like father figure.
What was his name?
Chris Wallace.
Okay.
So he and his wife were amazing, and the youth group was super tiny at that time.
I was like, I had 3 youth pastors, so I was like, maybe I came right when he...
No. So that would have been...
No, you're right.
Oh, my goodness. Like, 2007,
you guys
2008.
Were like, you guys went to the church when it, like, started, right? Or, like,
it was
really,
very
really
young.
early. Yeah, okay, that's why. I
Yeah.
wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was, like, 2007 or 2008. So just, like, coming out of, like, more, like, being shy, and then making friends, hearing about the Lord more, and then hearing about the Holy Spirit for the first time, kind of not really knowing, like, what that relationship looks like. So there was a guest speaker that had come in, and I still follow him on Facebook and, like, adore his family, but he was talking about how we can hear the Holy Spirit and how he wants to work in us and just different things. And so I was like, oh my goodness, like, I can pray, God hears me. I can pray that the Holy Spirit would help me too, through, like, all things. So they were also talking about missions, a mission trip, like, during church at that time. And I hadn't heard about anything like that before either. And at the time, I really felt like the Lord said, I want you to go on a mission trip. And I'm like, I don't know what this means. You know, I'm like a young teenager. This sounds like exciting, sounds fun, sounds like a way that God can move in me. But at that time, I was struggling with constant sickness, to the point where, like, I'd be up all night, like, throwing up. Doctors didn't know what the heck was wrong with me, going for different scans and not being able to go to sleepovers with my friends and just things like that because I was so sick. And they eventually found out that my gallbladder wasn't working. And so during that time, though, it was like a 9 or 8 month span of being, I would say, pretty severely sick, like losing weight. I was pale.
She was literally eating butter. Wasn't that when your mom?
No, that was when I was a baby.
Anyway,
I pretty much could eat.
Struggled to gain weight.
Yeah, I pretty much was like on a diet of like Pop-Tarts. Like, that's all my body could tolerate. And during that time, I got, like, really depressed and just, like, sad. I was, like, at home more.
Yeah.
And then I realized, like, some strife, like, between my parents during that time because you're home all the time. And I just remember one night I was just in the Word of God. Like, thankfully, like, I would go back to Him. I was just in the Word, and I was crying, and I was, like, realizing just things about my family and myself. You're, like, processing all this stuff. You're like, I'm removed from everything that I once knew. And I'm just going, my dad has depression. He doesn't know the Lord. He's going to kill himself just like my best friend's dad did. Like, what's the difference? Like, I just went down this whole rabbit trail of just different things. Meanwhile, believing, like, I'm going to get healed. I'm going to go on a mission trip and do all this stuff. So it's like this, there's all this swirling happening. And my mom comes in, finds me. Like, I heard her and dad fighting. And she goes, no, dad's not going to do that, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, he is. I'm, like, so convinced. I hear another sermon about, like, God waking you up or just praying for the salvation of someone, like, believing it, like, actually full out believing it. So I'm praying for my dad like crazy. I'm like, I don't know, but I want him here. Like, I love him. And so one night I wake up at like 4 a.m. and I just feel like God's telling me to pray. And so I'm just praying. I'm like crying. I'm like believing. I'm just like up for a few hours. A week goes past and I get a call from my mom and she's like, hey, is dad home? He never arrived at work today. And at that point, I'm like high alert. I'm praying. I'm like, this is it. Something's happening. Like, God, like, grab him, save him. So, yeah, even though this is like some of his story, this plays a part, I think, in my faith and how it grew me and how to kind of how I can understand like the Holy Spirit more and just like his power in my life, in my family. So he overdosed on all of my painkillers for my surgeries. I didn't do well on them, so I didn't take them.
Right.
So he goes to a parking lot, overdose on all of them, passes out. Someone finds him miraculously. He goes, I don't know, hospital, rehab, all that stuff, and not damaged at all. No liver damage, nothing. Like, it's an absolute miracle.
Yeah.
Like, there's no, the doctors are like, he should be dead. Like, he took how much? And the pastor comes and visits him, prays with him. He accepts the Lord. And that's just like so faith building. You're like, wait, God, you used me in a part of this. And like, you're after people and you're beyond science. You know, you're beyond what should naturally happen. So, yeah, that was incredible. And so then that was like the jump start kind of just my faith with that. And then got my surgery, was good. Ended up going to El Salvador, and then Guatemala, sorry. That was the first time I've even like really left my house. Right. You know, I grew up shy, basically calling my mom at every sleepover because I want to go home. It's bedtime. I don't want to be here.
No, I'm out of the country.
Now I'm out of the country. I'm on stage doing drama team. I am speaking in front of a school of kids in Guatemala. Just like all this stuff and loving every minute of it. So I do that. And then throughout high school, drama team, trips to El Salvador to kind of do all those same things. And then in 2010, I go to an IHOP conference, International House of Prayer, not pancakes.
Right.
And so I just turned 16. I fly out to visit my best friend. Little did I know she was going to this conference. So I go with her. And during that time, I don't know, like the Holy Spirit fell on me in a way I've never felt before. And I just start crying. And I just take things like even to the next level, even more seriously. And I come home and I tell the youth pastor at the time, I want to speak for the youth group because of XYZ. Like, in my opinion, I'm like, he's not doing this, this, and this, which is like really bold of me and would be hard to take, I think, as a youth pastor. You'd be like, what does this kid know? But he was so gracious.
Who's the youth pastor at this time? Is it still the first guy? Or?
No, it's not. I can't remember. It might have been Eric.
It was either Eric or
I think it was Eric.
PMAC was the one I remember before that.
Yeah.
I don't remember his actual name. This is what people
I know,
call
no,
him.
that's his name. Yeah, PMAC. That was Chris Wallace, PMAC.
Oh, then I did have him. See, I didn't know that was his name.
Amazing.
I only knew
That's
I'm sure
awesome.
somebody said it, but that was way back in the
That's
memory bank.
amazing.
And I'm just like new. I'm like, I don't know anybody here.
So
Ash dealt a little bit with the young,
feisty,
young,
fiery,
heavy. Like, I'm gonna come back and light everybody up.
Light everyone's butts on fire. So
I felt that when I went to Kenya, and I was like, I need to be a youth leader now.
Absolutely.
It's crazy.
So he graciously let me speak, and I prepared a sermon, and I spoke in front of the whole youth group, which like is absolutely crazy. I was the kid who wouldn't even go up for choir. I would hide and cry until my mama didn't want to go on stage.
See, I never knew that side of you.
Which is crazy.
You were always just like that person that like now I'm looking back and like, wow, I would like have like admired you.
Yeah.
But like I was just like, this person's kind of like weird. They're like that church person. Like,
That's hilarious.
they're doing all this stuff. Like obviously I didn't think you were uncool, but I was like I wasn't in that space and like understanding like why this is like transformative. To
why this transformed. So yeah, I feel like it was this gradual, but then also not gradual progression of just like, really following the Lord. So all that happened, and then, you know, a couple years later, you're about to graduate. It's like, okay, now what do I do? You know? So it was like, I'm going to be not a youth leader. I'm going to be a missionary, and like, I'm going to live in El Salvador. I'm going to go to Kenya, like whatever. I'm going to be in YWAM. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
You know? I'm going to do this. I'm going to go to college for this stuff. Like, it's going to be awesome. And I'm going to marry someone, and we're going to do all that.
She had it all.
I had it all figured out, you
travel
know?
the world.
And then at the same time, a year before I graduated, I went to Maine, and my uncle was teaching me how to use his camera for photography. He does like wilderness photography. So I'm spending time with him, learning this, and I'm like, oh, I love this too. taking that with me on the missions field as well. And I'm like, okay, like this is awesome. And then cue in.
All right, so
Kent.
it was not many things that ended up happening in my life were not my idea. So the only reason I was
Amen.
back at Victory Church was I've been going out to school in school near Pittsburgh for college. I went for 2 years. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was kind of going after psychology and counseling, and I thought, meanwhile, that porn addiction is still under the surface. But there was this kind of thing of like, I want there to be healing and I want there to be restoration. I myself was not there, but I had this desire to like see healthy marriages or families.
You're
and
existing in this, you don't want it anymore. Like I think that's when like, Jesus does have a hold of you, and you're that Holy Spirit's like, this is all wrong, but you still haven't learned how yet. But like, I know before when I was like really like trying to commit to God, like it was just sometimes like I don't even feel this is wrong. This is just who I am, and you really believe the lies. But then like the Holy Spirit's working, and maybe you're not in the healthiest relationship with God. It's telling you like, find a way out. This is not good for you.
Yep. So I'd been going to school for 2 years. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to go to school. I was kind of chasing my high school girlfriend-ish out to Western PA. We had broken up, so she was at a different college. I was at another college. And that did not work out. And then found a girl out there that I was dating, and it was not the healthiest. And again, a lot of that is me and my issues. And, I can't speak for her or anything, but, I can definitely speak about all the problems I have, which were many. And so I come back, and I do the summer. I did a Christian leadership at the beach thing, intentional living, lived at the summer for a month, was out there with my campus minister and a group of people. So we did kind of that thing. So I did feel like God was like raising me up into leadership, or like calling me into things, and just being more confident in speaking. But again, that porn thing is still there. I don't really know what to do with this. Well, so I get back here. It's like 2009, and I had a motorcycle. It was dangerous enough. It was not as dangerous as it could have been, but it was dangerous enough. And so it was just one night, like, I was at one of the Victory Church young adult things, and had a great time. Met Garrett. I don't know if I probably met Garrett before that, but
connected with him.
I think it was at his house. And so he said he kind of winked at me, like kind of this like, "Hey, have a safe night," thing, and just this like mannerism that he has. But it was really funny because then I go home, and I'm like, oh, I might stop by so-and-so's house on the way. So I'm going there, and there's this long driveway. It's pitch black. I'm on a motorcycle, and I remembered in high school, we used to fly down this road. Like, we used to just go. And I have not seen this long driveway in 2 years.
Right.
I am not in a car. I am on a motorcycle, and it's nighttime, and it didn't even click. I was just like, it was this like compulsion of like, I'm going to go as fast as I possibly can on this driveway. And then I'm going to go inside and be like, I just hit 90 on your driveway.
I'm ready to go in and share this already.
Yeah. The story was preformed. Yeah. So I just do it. First gear, boom, like we're rolling. And at that time you're like, all right, we're doing this. So I did hit 90. I did look down. I did confirm. And then I look up, and it's amazing how much space you run out of when you're going 90 miles an hour. And so I look up, and I'm like, oh, yeah, there's this gentle bend in the driveway. And so I slam on my brakes. Very narrow driveway. What I should have done was slam on my brakes and keep my eyes up and follow it. But I didn't. I looked straight, which was a cornfield, and you go where your eyes look, which isn't that telling. Yeah. And so I went off into the cornfield, and I just remember this like whooshing, kind of like the corn stalks going by, kind of blacked out. Like you just kind of are like, it's really dark in here. What's going, time kind of stops.
Right.
So you're going, and I'm flying through a field, and I wake up, and I'm like, why can I not get my freaking phone out of my pocket? Like I'm trying to get my phone, and it's because my wrist was severely dislocated. My other hand was broken. I had a broken finger. I almost hit a telephone pole. It's neither here nor there. So I'm getting up. I have to reach across with my left hand to pull my phone out, call my friend. two of my friends come out of the house and they're like, oh my gosh. So they call an ambulance. The ambulance comes. I get taken to the hospital. They have to forcefully put my wrist back into place. And then that leads to surgeries, and that leads to all these things. And it really did feel like a fork in the road. It felt like the motorcycle was kind of this analogy in a lot of ways. I think God is a storyteller, and he was definitely telling a lot of stories through my life. And so I get into this accident, and all of a sudden my life is like on hold. I'm back at home. I can't take care of myself. I can't do anything. I'm in 2 casts, and they're like, yeah, you could go back to school if you hire like a full-time nurse out there to take care of you. And I'm like, wow. Yeah, I don't think so. So very humbling experience, because I'm like 20, I don't even know, 22 or something. And, you know, all of a sudden my mom is bathing me again. So that's cool. Hey, Mom, thanks. It's just like your whole life is like, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. So I ended up going to Victory Church. Pastor Kurt is funny, and just obviously notices people. Obviously I stuck out like a sore thumb, very sore everything. And so I'm walking around, and he's like, hey, what's your story? And so we kind of start connecting, and over time that leads to a friendship. And he's like, you're a creative guy, you're a young guy, you're funny. Like he started calling out all the things that he saw. And I would say that God did place a lot of men in my journey through high school, and even a little bit younger and growing up, but definitely through high school and into college, like campus ministers or people who were like father figures who were like, hey, again, like this is good, this is not good. But I think because of all of that addiction stuff, I had landed at this place of like, I am bad. Yeah. All of it. Like I'm just trash, you know, and I'm going to put on the mask and be funny and do all the things. But I don't really believe that God really has much for me.
Right. I think that's why when I viewed Ashleigh, it was like somebody just on this other level that always is like that, because I'm defining myself as bad, and I can't be on this connection that other people are having. Yeah.
I think that's pretty common also. But yeah, so I was definitely looking at myself in that vein. So then, anyway, started going to Victory. Pastor Kurt's like, do you want a job here? That turned into, I believe, 2.5 years of, you know, no gear, no equipment, no knowledge, but in a position of needing to create content for the church. And so that was, you know, I'd always had a camera. I'd always been interested in photo video. I used to like edit music videos using Rage Against the Machine tracks with like news clips. And I had a lot of fun with it, you know? So like, it was interesting because if I look back, it felt like that kind of like Satan was trying to say, like, the computer, creativity, all these things, like, it's bad. You like it felt like a very clear like, oh, I shouldn't be near a computer because it's bad. I shouldn't be near like my creative things because like, am I just wasting time? Am I just goofing off, or what am I doing? But really, I think God was leading me into that space, and he started to confront a lot of the, I'm worthless, I'm bad, I can't do anything good. And it actually was really cool to see like what I could come up with when I like created and let myself think or dream or just use what he was doing. So I'd always had a camera and did photo video stuff and really, really loved it. And it was during that time at the church that I met Ashleigh, and then we had, I just been, you know, working at the church, and then I started going, well, maybe I'll start taking photos of like seniors, or maybe I'll start doing weddings, or I'll do these portrait things. And it started to turn into an income. And then trying to think. Yeah. So anyway, it grounded my life. Like I was not going back to school anymore. I think I'm staying here in Lancaster. I meet Ashleigh. I'm starting to find my calling of like what I feel really lights me up and makes me feel in terms of like my work, my vocation, my calling. So one day, I don't know which direction we want to go from here, but one day, I don't know, we just started growing in friendship, and we started hanging out a lot more. I thought you were cute, but I wasn't allowed to date her because she was in the youth group.
Right.
That's great. And so I was like, I'm not going to be alone with this girl, which again is that like, I don't trust myself. I don't know what to do thing.
Right.
So I'm not going to be alone with her. I don't even know what to do. She's super cute, blah, blah, blah. And your mom, Kathy, says, you should intern with Kent because you're like interested in missions or photo, don't know what to do. You're in this like next step thing.
I was like in this interim of like college applications, also loving the missions field, having even a place where I could go in the missions field right away. And then also loving the art of photography, and then going, well, Kent uses the camera and knows how to do all the things. Maybe I should ask him or go to a wedding. Maybe I like that. I don't know. And so
I turned her down.
Yeah. So this is like, you were my senior year, like towards the very, very end of it, right before I graduated.
For the record, let it be noted.
Yes.
It was the end of senior year. She was graduated. I was not pursuing anyone in the youth group.
And I was not interested in him.
No, she wasn't.
I was very interested in someone else. So
it was a bummer.
This was just purely in my mind, gaining tools and knowledge and seeing where the heck I was going with my future.
It was very practical for her.
So, yeah. You showed me how to use the camera before, and then you took my graduation pictures.
Hilarious.
And then you actually, you took my like senior pictures and then came to my graduation.
Yep.
And shot that.
I just kept showing up.
It was just hilarious.
It's all about consistency.
So
that's what I learned in the youth.
So then that summer, just like, applying at colleges and praying and wondering. And then also Kent calls me and is like, hey, I have this video wedding. This was before he was organized and professional. I have no second shooter to do this video wedding. You don't do video, but you're really good at photography, and I think you could do this. And I'm like, okay. So I go along, and he's using his cousin at this time, who we love, but he is a landscaper. He doesn't. This is not his
He used to do video, but he hadn't been doing it as regularly.
Yeah. So, I shoot it with him, and Kent's like, wow, she's like really good. And I was like, what? Okay. So I pretty much shoot every single wedding with him since that moment. Pretty much.
Yeah.
Besides
back in 2012.
I'm really pregnant, having a baby.
But at this point, it's just, you just work together.
so
and I'm like, wow, this pays.
Filming together.
And you're paying me. So I'm like, wow, this pays great. I never had a job. I would babysit, which I love. And that was my thing, like nannying. But I'm like, this is really cool. And at that time, I was applying for a summer job because I was like, I should save up for college or, if I'm going to go out in the missions field so I don't have to raise as much support. So I literally had my first job interview ever the week of that wedding that I shot with him. They call me while I'm at that wedding. Hey, you got the job. When do you want to start?
Never.
And I literally said, you know what? I'm not interested anymore, which is hilarious.
So funny.
So anyway, I'm shooting with him.
But she wasn't interested in me either.
So I'm shooting with him. I'm convinced I'm going to go to Lancaster Bible College. I ended like the friendship with the one person that I thought I was going to like marry. So I'm still not interested in Ken at this time.
Rub it in. Say it again.
Say it again.
So I'm shooting with him. We do a bunch of actually long drives because we had some weddings in Virginia or Delaware.
DC.
But during that time, I feel like we connected a lot. And I just started loving his heart for the Lord. And started just really, really valuing our friendship. And so we would talk, like eventually we would go to a movie or you would come to my house and hang out with me and my parents. Like we just started like developing like this friendship. And my best friend at the time was like, Kent really likes you. And I'm like oblivious. I don't know what my problem is, but I'm oblivious to this.
I'm an oblivious person. I resonate
I'm
with
just
that.
like probably focused on all the other things I had to do. And I'm like, no. And she's like, yes, he is. And so
I was.
He was.
Yes.
Anyway, so during that time, that was the summer. And I was about to start at Lancaster Bible College about 2 or 3 weeks from then. And I'm calling Kat and I'm like, I don't know if I want to go to college. Like, I don't know if I want to do this. And he's like, I'd encourage you to take like a leap year. Like, you don't have to go to college. No one's telling you to go right now.
And my parents were very supportive of me either way. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to go. I'm going to go to El Salvador for a whole month. Like, I'm going to go and pray. I'm going to do what I love to do. So, so that was in like August, saying no to school. I was going to El Salvador for the whole month of October. And so at the end of September, we have a wedding. And the next day he's like, hey, let's go out to eat together. I want to talk to you about some things. And I'm like, oh gosh. So I talked to my friend and she's like, I think you shouldn't go. I think you should say that you're fasting and just not go.
Very righteous.
Right. And just not go and meet with him because he likes you and you're leaving XYZ. And I'm like, okay. So I show up at church and he has like his back office or whatever. And he's like, hey, I'm like, I'm doing a smoothie fast. He's like, great. We'll go get smoothies at Tropical Smoothie or wherever it was. And so I'm like, okay, fine. So we go.
That.
He opens up about...
like I said, I'm very good at problem solving.
Right. He opens up about all the things he sees in us and what he loves about me and what he could see in our future. So I'm like, okay, like taken aback. I have never been in a relationship at this point, ever. And going, okay, like, what does this look like? I am leaving. I'm going away. And I also felt like the Lord said when I ended that other friendship that didn't end up turning into anything, that he said to wait until the beginning of the new year to even date anybody. So I'm like, okay, Kent, like I see all of this stuff and I love all of it, but I'm leaving. And I also felt the Lord say this. So can we continue with our friendship? Which is normally like, I feel like in most parts that would never work, right?
Friend zone.
Yeah.
Right? Never work. Well,
yeah,
we hung out all week and
yeah.
went to the movies before I went to El Salvador.
And in past relationships for me, it was like a no's a no. And then it's like, okay, well, I don't know how to be friends with you anymore. Right. So like, we're just done. And I'm just going to like close that door, and any attempt at reconnecting, eventually you just move on. You just like, it's done. And a previous girlfriend had said like, maybe you should work on like friendship with people. And she wasn't trying to be super profound. I was just saying, I have a hard time with that. And she said, well, maybe that's something God wants you to grow in, which I didn't want to hear. But it really did actually come true. And so with Ash, it just wasn't awkward. It wasn't weird. We just kept seeing each other. We just kept talking.
Right.
So it was very weird, because now I look at dating and different people dating and trying to date and find their rhythm and things. And for us, I don't know. We just both saw what it could have been, but we stayed friends and we kept talking, and I didn't try to rush her. I didn't want to push her, but I wanted to bring up every now and again, how are you feeling? Are you feeling any differently? You know, obviously at a certain point, if she had been like, no, seriously, like, don't bring it up, I'd been like, all right, cool, like, we're done. But she never did. And so it was just like, we're just going to keep talking. And I wasn't holding her on the line of like, hey, if she doesn't commit soon, like, there was no like, if this happens, there was no weird manipulative games, which again, control and anger are something that I have struggled a lot with in previous relationships, insecurities. So with her, this was very new and very fresh, and it just felt very different.
Where were you with God at this time? Because you were also just saying how like you would, I don't trust myself with like, being alone or going into that. Yeah,
it was definitely like a new experience. So I felt like, again, the duality of my life kind of still existed. Like there was still a private Kent who I didn't really want the world to see. Right. That I was dealing with a lot of things under the surface, addiction, shame, that cycle. But there was also this like, somehow in some weird way, God is guiding me towards good things too.
Yeah, because I definitely saw God in your life at that time, because you were a leader in the youth group at that time. And
and so
I looked up to you. You had a lot of wisdom, and even the people I had talked to after you were gone were like, they would talk about like, I remember Ken, like he was my leader. That was that was my favorite group. That was the best group I've been in.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I get, I think it just speaks to like God can use really broken people, of which I am one. And so I think even though I had all that stuff, I still wanted, and I think felt drawn and called to God in a lot of ways, and was trying to show up in those ways, even though there was a lot of baggage and things that I didn't know what to do with. And so Ash goes on this trip to El Salvador.
Yeah, so have a lot of time there, like when the kids are at school or napping, and I would take that time to journal and pray. And one of my focuses while I was there to pray about Kent, like, okay, you know, like,
what ministry were you in El Salvador with?
I was living at Beth's house.
Were you living at Beth's
yeah,
house?
I
Okay.
was.
Yeah, Esther's
Yeah,
heart.
so back when there were maybe 4 moms and their kids there, so I stayed there for a whole month in one of the rooms with a mom, and got lice, all that fun stuff.
Yeah,
but it was
you see
so
they just got a whole
much
new
fun.
house and everything, like a huge ministry building.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
that just happened the other day.
So yeah, we'd go out and feed the homeless, like with Kurt Ackerman, and it was awesome. But I would also FaceTime you. I figured out we could FaceTime because
Back then tech was kind of new, and no one, you know.
It's the year I got my iPhone, I think.
We basically were under the assumption that we're not going to be able to be in contact because you're in a different country.
Right.
So Wi-Fi based messaging and calling and those things was like newish to us, and so it was.
So we could FaceTime or text because he had an iPhone. I did too. I was on Wi-Fi. It wasn't contingent on data at that point.
Yeah.
So we would FaceTime, and the kids like fell in love with him, and he loved hearing about the stories. And he went to Africa, so he had a lot of experience of kind of what I was feeling. So I would just vent and talk, and I'm journaling, and I'm like, I don't see at this moment like any red flags. I really feel like I should take the step to date like after we get home. So halfway through the trip, I'm talking about all my family in Maine, how much I love them, all this stuff. And he's like, let's go to Maine when you get back.
Let's go.
Okay. We literally drive to Maine a few weeks after I get back. And I had journaled out certain things I wanted to talk about before I would even say yes to dating him. And so we drive to Maine, and then one of the days we go to a day trip in Canada. And on our way there, he brings up literally everything I had written down in my journal and answers them better than what I would have even expected.
Well done, Kat.
Or wanted. So I get back to my aunt's house, and I'm like calling my mom. I'm calling my best friend. I'm like, you'll never believe what just happened. All this awesome stuff. So then that's the fall. We start dating.
I didn't know I was being set up for a questionnaire, by the way.
Right.
Calling my friends, I just got grilled.
Yeah, that was the fall. We start dating that winter. Basically when exactly I felt like the Lord said, like, to be released a few months before, you know. And one of our first trips was down to the Keys, the Florida Keys, to shoot a wedding. So we drive halfway. We stay with PMAC and his family. And then we drive to the Keys, shoot the wedding, and then our friends are the photographers. So we're just all like in this big room.
It was super fun.
It was crazy.
I knew the couple getting married already.
Yeah.
And so it was like a really cool opportunity to be a part of their day, capture their story, do something really fun.
Yeah.
Photographers are friends. Ashleigh's with me.
It was so fun. So a lot of good conversations on that trip. A couple random ones, like there was a gas station that we had stopped at, which is hilarious. This girl comes out of the gas station.
There was a woman who literally was fresh out of prison.
Yeah. Or she said she was.
Her name was Arnetta.
Yeah.
And she's like,
Ken is inside going to the bathroom at this point. Hey. I'm in the car, and someone's knocking at the window. I'm like, I don't know who this person is. What do I do?
I'm fresh out of prison, and I don't know what to do. Could I have a ride with you guys? And I kind of look at Ashleigh. I'm like, oh, good Lord. Like,
Can I use your phone?
I have a, 18-and-a-half-year-old girl with me, like, who has parents who care about her, and I'm bringing a hitchhiker into the car who's fresh out of prison for something she says she didn't do. So it's great.
Anyway, we drive her to the end of the road.
Oh, so she does get
in
the car.
Okay.
We're agreeing to it.
But while we're in there, she goes, you guys are going to get married. And I'm like,
so she starts laying out all of this stuff.
She's like, I go to the Holies Church. Like, she's talking about, I don't even know what.
Yeah, she just went off. But she was prophetic or something because...
Lo and behold.
So I'm up in the front seat. Literally, we've been dating for like 5 days, and she's like, "Oh, y'all gonna get married?" And I'm fist pumping visibly. I'm like, "Yes, yes!" And Ashley's probably sitting there going like, "Huh?"
We haven't gotten that far yet.
Right. I'm over there going like, "What?"
Yeah.
But anyway, like 2 other circumstances like that kind of happened.
People walked by and like, "You guys are so cute,"
and say like, "You guys are like meant to be." Like, I don't know, just random stuff.
Threw stuff out the whole time.
Kind of the whole trip.
Yeah.
Anyway, had a blast, and then continued shooting weddings.
I'm nannying.
Well, hold on. So on the way back, I say to Ash, so, if we were to get engaged, when do you think you'd be okay with that?
This is like 2 weeks into dating.
Right. No, it's like less than that. It might
know.
be like 5 to 7
I think
days.
it's a little different for you guys with how much of a foundation relationship
have a lot
you
of
built
friendship.
up.
Right. We had like 6 months of friendship.
A lot of talking, a lot of long rides to weddings
So it's
and
like
things. So
some people are like, oh, well, we just started dating. Like that process, like, is getting to know that human being.
Yeah,
right,
from the beginning. Yeah.
Right. And then we
knew each other for a while, not as
Right.
like close friends or anything. But so then that spring, we're still shooting weddings. Yeah, I'm still nannying. And then in June, I'm on my annual beach trip. We go to see PMAC, me and my girlfriends, every year since high school. We would drive down to South Carolina.
Oh, that's cool.
Kent flies up and surprises me and asks me to marry him out there on the beach.
So we've been dating
Yeah.
6 months
6
officially.
months. Yeah.
Propose, all the stuff,
Then
totally awesome.
Then you come
And
drive back with us.
yeah. So then I think where it kind of all ties in of like getting encountered for me was like I've been going to a men's group, an accountability group, and God had just been dropping these like, hey, pay attention moments and different husbands who'd been married forever who did not know what to do with all this, or their wives didn't know what to do with their own like the husband's addiction related thing. So it was like an addiction accountability recovery thing.
Yeah,
And
like
so-
you were hearing stories of them being married for a few years, and then the
Or
wife going
years
like,
and years and years.
I didn't know any of this about you.
Yeah.
And I feel like I was tricked into marrying you.
Yeah.
And so he has this in his mind.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we're engaged. And we had set up some pretty big boundaries anyway. So, like, we didn't kiss at all while we
How
were
much of-
dating.
Is private Ken's stuff shared between you guys?
So
up until engagement, not very much.
Okay.
I would say I was very open about wounds, and I was very
and
open.
you're very open about, like, this was a past struggle.
Well, like, this
and
was
I
a
was so
thing.
naive, I didn't.
Right.
It was a whole
Well,
new world to me.
no.
Like, I never struggled with that. So
I
and
wouldn't
knew
say
anyone
that you were only
closely
naive.
did.
I would also say that addicts, and I don't want to
That's
label
true.
anybody, but people with addictions
Yeah.
lie.
It's true.
And I wish
I
it was
attest
not
to that.
the
It's
case.
true.
I was
Yeah.
really good at lying.
Yeah.
I got
Yeah.
really good at
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
You have to cover up your
You know
tracks,
what
so.
people want to hear.
Mhm.
You know the
Mhm.
best way to say, hey, I did this here, but I didn't do this. And you try to lean heavy on
Right.
the good.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very
I
manipulative.
call it
and
my bullshit detector now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
when I see people doing it, I was like, no. See, I know how to do that.
Yeah.
You're not going to fool me.
Yeah.
Right.
No, and that's good. I mean, it's a good.
So, like, you opened up about your past or past
Yeah.
relationships
Okay.
and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But, in my being probably naive and then you covering whatever up still,
not knowing how
I
to
just-
be honest. Yeah.
didn't even think about it. I
Mhm.
literally
Yeah.
didn't think that it was even an issue. I'm like, if you're, like, all out with God, like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Why would
Yeah.
this even be a problem?
Yeah.
Um,
So I get
Yeah.
a lot of friends or these people from these groups are saying these things, and I'm like, okay, wow, shoot, I didn't really want to have that conversation for a long time. Like, again, my MO is like, I want to fix myself.
Right.
And so, scripture really started to come alive. And also I just really felt like God was challenging me. Like, you need to be honest about these things. And it's up to Ashleigh on how Ashleigh wants to respond.
yeah.
But again, we've been engaged.
So we got engaged in June.
So it's probably 2 months.
And then in August, we found an apartment that you had moved into.
Yeah.
We were like starting to get that place ready. We had walked downtown.
We've been wedding planning. We have a
Right,
venue.
right,
I think
we've
you
got it
might even
all.
have a dress.
Probably.
Obviously, the ring is not going back easily in terms of financials. Like, I mean, it's like we
Right.
have all the things.
Right.
They
Right.
can't
It's
really
all
be
ready to
returned
go.
at sale
Invites are
value
out,
or whatever.
everything.
And
Yeah.
so I come home from one of these groups and I'm like, I don't know how to deal with this anymore. This is still a thing.
Yeah.
Porn is still a thing. And
So our wedding is
it was in
like 3
October.
months away
And
from
I think we
when
were
he
in
brings up
August.
this conversation.
Yeah. So it kind of became this like,
2
we
months
have
away.
the dress, we have the venue, we've done the deposits, we've done all this stuff.
Yeah.
Friends are involved. Everybody involved.
knows. Yeah. And sees
But-
like our testimony thus far, you know?
But it's like, will there be a wedding? Is really the feeling that it kind of came down to, because like, I'm going to just share all this stuff. And so I shared all the stuff, and the clock is ticking on the wedding date. Ashleigh is totally blindsided.
I'm sobbing.
Yeah.
I can't eat
Yeah.
for days. I am literally losing my mind. Like, like what is happening? You know what I mean? Like, is this my life? Like, was this all, you know, tomfoolery? What was this? And is this you, God? Like, you know what I mean? So I immediately, like, my mom was so great during all of this, like just talking with me and staying up late, processing, just like all this stuff. Pastor Todd was the like assistant pastor at that time, and so he was doing our
Don't forget that title.
He was doing our premarital counseling, so I meet with him, and he's amazing. I'm crying, we're talking. It comes down to, so what do you feel like? Are we continuing with this? Are we putting it on pause? Are we ending it? Like, what? That's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
You're like, never been in a relationship, feel the Lord leading you like all the way until this point, and then you're like, everything I knew is not what I knew. So, you know, then he meets with him too, we're praying, and I still feel like God says marry him, which is crazy because that's really risky.
Yeah, I was gonna say
He could never change, and it could be really bad.
I think that, you know, I've thought about this a lot. I have a daughter and I have 2 sons, and if I saw them exhibiting some of the things that I'm exhibiting, or if I see a man who's coming after my daughter who has all these things, I'd be very hesitant.
Right.
Obviously, that's a huge red flag. Like,
Right.
how there really truly is no guarantee that anything is going to change or be different
Right.
when this is all I had known in my life. And so Todd asks me in one of the counseling sessions, like, do you want to give this up because you actually want to be free, or are you trying to like change to marry Ashleigh? That kind of question.
Wow,
And I was like,
that's heavy.
I just was pretty honest. And I said, I don't know. I've tried everything I know in my life to change this, and it's not going anywhere. And so I don't want it, but part of me wants it.
Right.
And I don't want to keep wanting it. And, you know, just that
is the honest thing.
That whole battle.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, yeah, like you said, I mean, obviously if Ash had said, game over, we're done, like, there's nothing I could do about that. But we continued to talk and see each other and go through counseling. We had been doing like basically premarital since we were dating. Like we started dating, and we just started meeting with Todd and just going through things and resources. And again, the porn stuff wasn't a conversation yet, but we were at least in some kind of biblical counseling from the beginning of our relationship. And we did have boundaries on the physical, which I think was very helpful. And so it was really in that space of really open, honest, like I could lose it all stuff that I felt like God really started to actually work and encounter me. And so a lot of scriptures were very helpful at that time. But so things like coming out into the light was a huge thing. I mean, I got very into Matt Chandler around that time down in the Village Church, his sermons, Recovering Redemption series, which was kind of a series built for their or taken from the stuff that they were doing with their own like recovery and addiction counseling within the church.
Yeah.
So I was going through all that, and I just really felt like I was getting more and more equipped to be more honest. Even though, that was really hard. I mean, it's like pulling a rock up and looking underneath, and you see all this stuff underneath that you're like, oh, I thought the rock was the problem. So I thought the porn was the problem. And really, it was a problem, but it was like a symptom of a lot of the anger and the control and the manipulation and my desire to feel safe. And so I think that what God was doing over the course of my life was trying to get me to trust him, which is not safe. And so I would trust him and then freak out and then go to where I felt safety, which was porn. Tried to control the out of control feelings I felt, and then come back and say, oh, sorry, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. Recommit.
It's the cycle.
And then shame, recommit, and then again, fall back. And so Ashleigh, I think in a lot of ways was very it was very challenging, but restoring, because she was essentially like, you don't have to be this person. I don't want you to be this person. This is not who you are. So there was a lot of forgiveness from her, and that's where I really felt like power to change really started to come in through a lot of those conversations. So,
if you experienced the cut, we just had to have a brief pause, and we're going to continue.
Yeah. So I think, it felt like I had to come to the end of myself again, which I think is a both daily and lifelong process.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Which I wish I had known, because I think now, so I had to lay it down and say, okay, Jesus, I'm trying so hard to do everything I know to do, and this is not working. And he was inviting me. I think I thought he would just take this away at some point. And I know that that's a common prayer. A lot of people pray about anything. God, just take this away. And they kind of go two places with that. Either they realize maybe that's not how he always does things. Or they realize, or they start to go, okay, well, he didn't take this away, so this is who I am. So I could have easily stayed in that realm of shame, guilt, all that stuff. But again, God just really stayed after me, and it led me to a surrender with Ashleigh, and with other people, where I had to start getting really honest about a lot of things that I was trying to suppress or push down or not be real with. And so when I say God doesn't always just take things away, I think what I mean is his process of healing does not look like I think. And so there's plenty of healing stories in scripture, but one of them is this woman who has tried everything, the woman with blood, that frequent ailment that she just goes to every doctor and everything, and she tries everything, and she's wasted all of her money fixing this, and nothing works. And she touches Jesus, and he heals her, and he turns around and says, who touched me? And everybody's like, this is a huge crowd. There's 1 million people here. What's your deal? And he said, no, someone touched me. And I think that is what kind of needed to happen. My desperation needed to reach a point where I didn't know what to do, except go to Jesus. And it was through Ashleigh, and I think through our friendship and relationship, and kind of the power and the words that she was going to bring to me, and then God kind of doing surgery in a way on my heart, based on it's Ashleigh had to wound me or touch the wounded areas already in order to do a deeper work over time. And so he didn't just take away the desire. He had to reframe my desires and reframe why I felt a lot of the feelings and why I tried to hide. And
no, that honesty is so important, because I had a very serious relationship end because I was unable to do what you did. And I let those lies just become tangible in a way, and just gave up. It's just I don't know what to do anymore. It wasn't a giving up oh, now I need to throw myself at Jesus. It's just I started doubting he's not going to help me, and I don't know who I am anymore. And I had those same things said to me, this isn't you, but that didn't reach me. It was just what do you mean it's not me? That was more of an insult, and I'm done with this kind of thing. And it's definitely, I can see that obviously you guys know now that was God doing that right then, but you guys are engaged and about to get married and then have kids, and God's you guys are gonna have kids. I'm breaking these generational curses right now, and it has to happen. And definitely both your faith and being with God. Just like that's why he did that. He's just like, I got all these good things I need to do, but now you guys are at that point. It's time to deal with it. It's time to deal with it. And then God had used that relationship ending for me, and now has started doing all those things for me, which obviously in that point, like, everything was crumbling around me. I was even losing friendships which were not even from that struggle of mine. Like, things were just crashing and burning. I'm just like, now looking back, it's just like, wow, like, it all sucked, but it was just like, in that moment you're like, this can't lead to anything. And now I've been at more peace and freer than I've ever been from that point, which is just how his, like you said, his healing process is never how we think it's gonna look.
And I think maybe the next step of honesty also is that, like, we're not, or I'm not, it's not like that one moment was the end of all of the feelings I feel and all of the pulls and all of that. And so I find that addiction and that temptation and those strongholds, like, are kind of cyclical, and I don't understand why. For me, there are times where they come back and you go, you know. And so there have been times after that main conversation where we have had to have new conversations about, I did fall back into who I was, or I did go back and look at something, or I did feel like so pulled in a direction and life feels crazy or burdensome. I think often I forget to go to Jesus with a lot of things. And those things kind of pile up like a backpack that I'm carrying around. And then instead of going to Jesus with those things, I go back and I look at something and I really wish it was not that way. And so there have had to be really hard conversations between us since that hard conversation. So we are definitely on a process of not wanting that to defeat or define us, but also that we need to continue to fight for and surrender to Jesus, like, in that, and find, like, longer term, over time healing in the honesty together.
Yeah, because we were married for 8 years, but you were 6 till you got married. We got married you were 23. So you have all of these years of these, like, I mean, it's like science, these neural pathways that just go that way. So it's like breaking all of that and generational curses and just like, when these things pop up, thank God it's not all the time. But, like, when they do pop up, I feel like they're always like the most inconvenient times. It's usually when we're going through something really hard, where the enemy tries to
a lion prowling around, so that circumstance comes. He's just like, they're susceptible now. It's time to lay it on him. And that is often the time when we are attacked. It feels like everything else is attacked, and then, like, that gets attacked too, which is extra hard to like come back from. Like, for me, from my heart, for my security, my safety, I revert back to sometimes those feelings of, like, initially, but then I have to remind myself of, like, this, we're called to be together. These are our children. How do we together seek the Lord and continue to bring deeper and deeper healing and work on those other layers under there? And how has that process been? Like, you're married now. And what does that look like for you guys? Like, chasing after the Lord together and not, like, being combined as one.
Right. It's very hard, I would say, with children. I feel like our first probably year or two of marriage, like, I don't know.
I think I
struggle
felt
much during those times.
I would say I felt the greatest freedom during some of those early years, like right after, you get honest and you get into rhythms of honesty. And so it felt like I had a lot more brain space back then to just be like, this is how I'm feeling. This is why I'm feeling it.
Right.
And we would just talk about it.
Right.
And it felt like that intimacy was kind of met.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would pray together, or we would like do different
or you could just go on a date or
yeah.
Right.
like even when we had our firstborn, we would go away every quarter because we read a book and it says when you're married, go away every quarter for like a weekend, talk about your marriage goals, like just do fun stuff.
Yeah,
Right.
so we would do a lot of those
of that.
things.
And then you have our secondborn, which I literally couldn't leave because I was his source of food and he wouldn't eat anything else.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, like, so then you're learning, like, what does this look like now? We can't just...
Your actual, like, partner sharpening you and your honesty is, like,
we can't just
predisposed doing something that's necessary.
Yeah, we can't just go do whatever all the time.
I would... I would say that, like you said, Nate, the journey to surrender, or the journey to continually surrender and show up and ask God to do something like new and fresh and to bring healing and wisdom and revelation and all those things, and like to have the Holy Spirit like working on your behalf and working in your heart. It really is an everyday thing. And I think that with kids, and then obviously we had a business, which then over time brought transitions kind of into two businesses, which has then led into different pursuits or like things. And so or like having a team for my company, or then like having two brands that have different people involved. Like there's a lot going on. And so it felt like with each season I would break down and go, I don't feel equipped for this. And it was all over again, the Peter sinking in the water thing, where he's like looking at the waves, and I have a vision problem. I mean, it's funny. God's a storyteller. My vision is literally horrible. My eyes, like I have super strong glasses. And I think that there's something to some of these things where God is like, you need your vision to be healed, and you need to be on me. And I can focus on the waves. And so, this winter work really slowed down, and I had more staff than I've ever had. I've had more children than I've ever had. I've felt more out in the ocean than ever before. And God's like, keep your eyes on me, keep your eyes on me, keep your eyes on me. And I sink and I fall and I take my eyes off him and I spiral. And I don't want my life to be like that, but it's where I found myself. And we had to deal again with, okay, like, are we trusting God right now? And so in each like level up or whatever he's doing or calling us into, there's been a lot of conversations of like, are we doing something we shouldn't be doing that we need to scale back on? Are we with the things we're doing, could they be more organized or refined so that our hearts are just not tangled up? And are there honest conversations we need to have? And so, yeah, I think it is really about doing all those things together.
Yeah.
Which, has been the process.
Yeah, I think you even reached out to us in the middle of like a really hard season, which was crazy because it's kind of like, okay, like I want to share this stuff, but at the same time, it's like, it almost feels like raw. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you're walking through certain things again. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know our kids and our family have like dealt with like several months of sickness just between us all.
Yeah, for like 2 months straight.
That definitely led me to feel exhausted, frustrated, and just like tired. Our businesses faced a pretty big slowdown over the winter, which is expected, but it had been the first slowdown like really in like a year and a half or two. So I took that really hard, and just facing many of the challenges in those businesses that I'm trying to navigate. There's been a lot of transitions there. So that was like a real thing. And then, not feeling like we could just hop in a car and talk again, not feeling like we can just drive somewhere and do whatever we want. Like it was a very in real life kind of thing that like, it's not clean. It's not clean cut. And it was just like a really difficult season. So all of those things felt like they were colliding. And then obviously like things like COVID and things like just like the craziest fall we've ever had. And again, COVID kind of pushed a lot of our work into different places. I wish it wasn't. And so we had to like tackle a lot of new challenges along the way. I just felt fried, and it's no excuse. And so I feel like that's again, a place of like where I need to come to Ashleigh and be honest and ask for forgiveness and try to navigate, okay, I have sinned and we need to talk and figure this out again. And
which I'm thankful that
you do that, because if you didn't, then it just like, that would literally destroy our family. So like the fact that you come and have those hard conversations, even though they like destroy me, like, it strengthens us and our family and can change the trajectory for our children.
Yeah.
So,
I feel like I can bottle up, and like I said, the backpack kind of thing can happen. So I think daily surrender to Jesus is really what he's asking for. And I think that if I could be honest, probably if I was more daily connected with him, I really do feel like some of this stuff maybe wouldn't bottle up quite as much. I think that I do try to carry a lot, and I wish that I didn't do that. You know, so I felt like in the harder seasons, I default back to I'm alone and I have to figure this out myself. And that leads me to desperation and just wanting to fix my life or feel good or escape or something and go back to places that really don't bring any healing. So yeah, I think Ashleigh's been very gracious in that journey, but we don't want to excuse those things, but we want to address those things together. So yeah, it is just very real life. I wish that in so many ways, I wish it was just like, this was gone, this is done.
Right.
But it is still a thing where I'm like, okay, God, like we're going to have to, as life levels up, we have to trust you with more.
Right. You read the Bible, like real life never stops. Like there's always people like dealing with real life circumstances that even apply to today. And then there's not a point of, obviously at the end is when it's like, you're done with all that.
Yeah.
But until then, it's going to be real life. And then like, that's at least why my main focus for myself is to be really blunt with my honesty. It's just like, if it's talking about pornography, which people don't typically like to hear about, it's just like, this is what's going on with me, this is how this, and I lie about that, and this trauma here, and just obviously I don't know if that is how it needs to be for everybody, but I know it is for me, because lying was such a stronghold, and I know if I just start sweeping things under the rug again, it's just going to go down in that hole. And it obviously is still something I'm working on, but the more that it's just, this is how it is, this is what's happening, because that's the truth, and if the truth is that I'm sinning, that's still the truth. It helps keep that weight off. And obviously that needs to also be confessing before Christ, but obviously having this group that I'm doing has helped with that. But then also struggling with what you were just saying, I get into the point where not only am I trying to fix it for myself, I'm like, I gotta fix people, and then I start carrying it on there. And I would look at the waves, which are like the people around me's lives that are going awry, and it's just like, I don't want to think about this anymore. And it's like, that leads straight back into pornography or lying or whatever it is, or go and have a drink or whatever. And he's been teaching me, like, you have to trust me with all of this, because I'm the one doing it. You're here shining a light, telling the truth, and that's what they're supposed to do. It's all we're supposed to do. And you have to trust me with that mountain that you're just like looking up at. But if you're looking up at it, you got to be like, wow, Jesus is gonna move this, which has been a process of learning, because like I started off just like not doing well in that. I'm just like, I'm losing my mind, and now it's getting slow. It's slowly coming along, because there's a lot of like raw open things that are in that group, and I'm like, I have to cut these soul ties with that, which is not to be like, I don't care about you guys. It's just like, and they're all, I've expressed this with them. It's just like, I'm not going to be able to fix you. Jesus is going to be the one that delivers us, and I can't. The enemy just wants me to get overwhelmed and come back. So
I think
so huge
burden bearing and like carrying stuff for other people is a big trigger. Carrying my own concerns and not giving them to Jesus every day.
Yeah.
And the feeling of being overwhelmed and not knowing where do I even begin to talk about what I feel with like Ashleigh, or just even general things can really bottle up, and you're like,
right, you're like too tired, you just want to like go to bed,
which
is like fine sometimes, because
Right.
like sometimes we
you
are
just need to
literally
go to
so exhausted, you're just like the children are finally asleep, I'm going to bed. So there's that. And then also for you, I feel like in general has always been like when sickness happens, you just want to fix it, and you can't always, like God doesn't always heal right away. And you know, maybe there's some lessons in there for us to learn, or to keep pressing on, or to keep trusting him. And I think you can tend to feel really like overwhelmed and angry at sickness. Like even when we didn't even have kids, like if I would have the flu or get sick or something, I don't know why, you just get really angry because you hated seeing me sick.
Right.
Yeah.
But then I felt like I was almost the problem, you know? I'm like, I can't control that. Like I'm sick, or like I have anxiety right now, or like, whatever. So
So I think we've been on a journey with just like honesty, you know, and if you're feeling something, we need to share, we need to talk. If I'm feeling something, not even about you, if I feel something about somebody else, if I need to have a direct confrontation with someone about something,
instead of letting that
fester.
Go.
I think this year there has been a lot of conversations with other people that I wish I had, and because I didn't, it built up, and that led again to these feelings of like, okay, I don't know what to do. So I think it's just a journey of you know, I'm probably a little more mercy oriented as a person, so I would rather carry a burden I'm not supposed to, instead of a direct addressing and let someone deal with the truth. But if I look at my life, it has showed me that, you know, Ashleigh's honesty and God's truth has moved those mountains. And so if I'm being called to say the truth somewhere, I need to do that and not bottle it up. So
no, it's a challenge. It is a challenge.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you guys have? I mean, was that touching on the things that you were saying going on right now, or did you not want to go into what you're saying is kind of raw the moment?
No, I think that was all.
It's mostly just dealing with just ongoing sickness, and then just like more on our plate now than it's ever been before. I mean, and it could get less, it could get more. But like wanting to grow closer to each other and the Lord and community around us during those times, so that can continue in the ups and the downs. Like doing the hard work when it's hard too. So
would there be anything from your 8 years of marriage that maybe we didn't get to that you would be like, this was something that maybe we should share? Just wanted to just ask.
Oh, totally.
But if not, it's okay. It's a lot of time to recall as well. I understand. It's
so true.
No, I think just honesty is probably a really big piece of like, maybe what I would challenge people with, and myself. Like, be honest, but I mean, share the truth in love. Walk it out with Jesus, and if he's saying to do something, just do it. I probably have a lot of Jonah syndrome in me, where he'll say something and I'm like, I'll get to that, and I don't, and it builds.
It makes it worse.
You just have to do what he wants you to do and say what he wants you to say. And I think we have felt more life when we were in that space. But it, like I said, it's hard to be honest. It's hard to be honest with myself. It's hard to admit when I feel like I'm not measuring up. It's hard to be honest because you're in a tiring season of motherhood. So like if I feel like, hey, there needs to be some course corrections, like for you could feel overwhelmed. So, you know, there's a lot of like, okay, I just need to be honest and share and let God do the work.
And letting him do the work is also like actively, you know, just talking with him
Yeah.
and praying and being in the Word.
Right.
And
right.
that doesn't, like, in my season of life, I wish I could just, like, be in the Bible for an hour. Maybe I could be. But right now it's like, you know, those 5 minutes, or I'm up with a kid and I'm just praying too, or, you know, in the car, whatever you can do to just keep bringing yourself back to him and reminding, like, why you're on this planet and what you're here for and what your purpose is huge. And just, like, us reminding each other, like, you know, in the hard moments of parenting, because parenting is awesome, but it's also
refining.
Yeah, like,
You're pouring
it's like
out a lot.
it can be a thankless job. That's what I'm going for. So, like, you're pouring out, and then, like, at the end of the day, they go, I hate you. You know, they don't actually hate you. You know what I mean? But they go through, like, these seasons, and you're just like, holy cow, this is so hard. But then going, like, I'm raising the next generation. This is a missions field. Because you think, like, oh, I should be, like, in Africa helping, which is great. And I would love to do that with my kids one day. But, like, these are the next generation. If I'm not pouring the Holy Spirit into them, like, through me, like, filling myself up and doing that for them, how are they going to be equipped to, like, you know, not that it's all on me, but like, to the degree that we are hearing God and letting him flow through us is what our children are going to see, and hopefully what they desire.
Yeah. So when I say honesty, I think it can be very, very simple. Like, if I got angry, saying I'm sorry, and trying to learn and grow and hear from people what they have for that. And if I'm falling into sin, I need to get honest about that and say, hopefully, more and more steps ahead of the problem, getting honest with that journey. And if I feel like somebody has hurt me, maybe I need to go talk to them.
Right.
Maybe I need to forgive something or myself or some timing issue or something that I feel. So like, so with our kids, you know, there's definitely times of, hey, you said this to me, you know, so let's talk about that.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of, like, being young like that, like right now, my middle child, like, recoils a lot. You know, he doesn't want to talk about how whatever happened.
Right.
And
why he hit XYZ.
Yeah.
Or
why he talks like this to me because he's angry.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it is just being honest and talking about it together and being okay with, like, providing a safe space and being on a journey, because, like, God's been on a journey with me. So you just can do what you can do, but you have to do it in surrender.
Being honest about, like, the season you're into, like, I'm more anxious this season, or I feel more depressed, or, like, talking about it and getting the Lord's heart for that, because, like, we don't have to live in that, even though we feel those things. Like, we can through him and through, like, our community, you know, just kind of go past some of that, or can lessen the burden, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Lessen the burden of those emotions or those seasons. It doesn't necessarily
change everything.
kaput it, but
yeah,
just to ease it. Yeah.
No, I think that's all awesome. I guess I can't really speak into parenting at all, but I know at least what I learned from the youth group, and maybe you did, but I think it's important. And then just reflecting on being raised from parents, just to keep that constant pursuit of your children there. Maybe it's when they get a little older, it gets more difficult, because maybe they don't, but sometimes then they'll start pushing harder. But then have that pursuit be there, even if that wall's up. Yeah. Because I know, like, I don't want to knock my parents like they did. You know, we're all imperfect. I know if I have kids and raise them, I'm not going to succeed in everything that I do. But then my sister and I, we put walls up, and then the pursuit kind of stopped, because it's like they don't want to talk to us. Yeah. And I would just, because don't listen to them. You know, maybe they just dislike you more in that season, but then when they get older, because the same thing that I've seen from the people pouring in me even when I wasn't there, it's like, wow, they just I'm seeing the fruits of that constant trying to pour and to grow, like, just plant seeds in people. Because I'm still recalling things from, like, like Jeremy when he was like mentoring me, Dave Ostertag, just being a presence. Like, I don't talk to these people anymore, but just in their constant pursuit of me and just helping me, even if I wasn't there to receive it, it's bearing fruit
That's
now.
encouraging.
Yeah.
So just, you might not even see it now in kids then, they go through something in middle school in a phase, but like constant pursuit and just pouring out Christ's love in them, that's going to bear so much fruit later when like God gets one-on-one with them and they're just starting like, I remember all that they were saying that.
Wow.
It was the constant message they were telling me, like they were telling me the truth, you know, and then you realize instead of just like, they weren't telling me anything, and kind of like, I kind of had a little bit of that experience where you're saying just kind of like, Dad's there, but a little bit just absent-minded in that pursuit, just you know, just wherever they're at in their struggles, just like, whoa, where there's no seeds that were even being planted, you know. So just keep that up. But thank you guys so much for coming on and sharing all that. Like, that's all this has been about. But
thanks for having us.
Yeah, especially with all the, you were just saying how like overwhelming time, like I really appreciate you making time to come out. I was just messaging people, and a lot of people are like, I don't got time for this. And like, I get it, but it's just like, first couple that was like, yeah, we could do that.
That's awesome.
This is really cool. And I thought that this has a unique dynamic that I never really tackled into. All right. This has been For a Better Day podcast. Thank you, Kent. Thank you, Ashleigh. And we'll see you guys next time. That's it.
Love it.
Awesome.